Hello, Bill Johnson here with another Prevost maintenance moment. Today's project will be to replace this manual belt tensioner with an automatic belt tensioner. The automatic tensioner mounts here, so you have to move this filler neck to this location, but you'll have to buy a different filler neck, as that one, because of where the neck is, will hit the belt. And I'll show you that here in a moment. I'm also going to take this alternator vent line that connects currently in the back of this gear case and move it to go into the filler neck plate with a larger line. That's a recommended change that Prevost made, or Detroit Diesel made, many years ago. I think most of the buses after about 1998-99 had the auto belt tensioner on it, and they recommend that you have that tensioner whenever you're using this larger 50 DN, I think it's a DN or a TN alternator. Okay, so those are the projects. I may have to reverse these bolts. The bolt with the extra threads holds the clamp that then will hold this vent line. I'll show you that in the book. Not a big deal. You just simply take the bolt out back here and take these out and retorque them, and not a big deal. So here's the parts over here on the bench. You may hear some noise in the background. It's raining here today and I got the oil heater running, but I'm just trying to document this to help out the next person, as I've received a lot of help on the forums as well. Here's the parts, $250. I think I got a really good buy. New old stock, a little light surface rust. Just clean it up real quick, no big deal. Here's the part number. In addition, you need a new oil filler neck. I found this one on eBay, $150. New old stock again. I got some extra gaskets in case I need them. And then these are fittings I'll use to make that new line for the alternator vent. Now here's a service bulletin that Gil posted out on the board. And you'll see that, I think these are his notes, that this is the part to use, the T drive. There's also a V drive. The difference in the kits being the belt length. That's the only difference in the kits. I don't know what the difference is on the bus. But nonetheless, here's the part that everybody on the board used, and that's the one I bought as well. If you need the other V drive, there's the kit number. Again, if you can only find a V drive kit with a 61, you just have to replace the belt, go to Napa and get yourself a different belt. So if you can find a good buy on this kit, I wouldn't hesitate to buy it and just swap out the belt. I may swap this belt out anyway. This kit's been on the shelf for who knows how many years, and you know, keep that as a backup belt or just swap out the belt. Anyway, that's what I'm going to be working on. In addition, here's that alternator vent line I talked about, moving it from going in the back of this gear case to going in the front, and that's this hole right here of the new belt tensioner plate. And then previously I had done the gear stiffening brackets, and I may have to swap those two around. It looks like it is on the bottom one here in this picture. Okay, I'll shoot some video as I go through it, hopefully to help out somebody else in doing this project. Again, everything was found on eBay at very reasonable costs. And here's actually the Detroit box that the kit came in, and the Detroit bag that the oil filler neck came in. So genuine Detroit parts. Okay, here we go. First step, I'm going to take this mechanism off, this tensioning mechanism off, and then that'll allow me to get the belt off of here. I'm going to take the oil filler neck off, take this plate off, clean everything up, and get ready to install. So to take this plate off, loosen the bolt down here, loosen the bolt up here so the whole thing can slide. Use the long threaded rod just to loosen that tensioner, and then obviously unbolt it off of the gear case, and I'll unbolt the other plates as well. So that's step one. Okay, I've scraped the gasket off the one cover plate. Make sure you get every little bit of gasket off there so you're down to the steel. See right there, you can see I still got a little bit of gasket to get off, and right there as well. So make sure you're all the way down to the steel so it seals really well. I find the best tool to use is kind of one of these scrapers, paint scraper. And if you can get up underneath the gasket carefully and start working your way around, make sure that your other hand does not get in front of the blade, because it does have a tendency to slip on occasion and it'll jump. So be prepared for that and stabilize yourself. But use some sharp razor blades, clean it up real well, and then you'll be ready to reinstall. Here we are, all cleaned up and ready to go. I think I got most of the gasket off. Well, there's just a tiny bit right there, but you can see for the most part it's clean and ready to go. I did have rags in here to keep anything from dropping down into the engine as I was getting that gasket off. And I've cleaned it all up and we're ready to install. So the first step, I took the new tensioner plate over here. And the gaskets I had, I think I might have said in one of the other videos, didn't quite match up on this hole. So I elongated the hole just a little bit using a hole punch and solved that problem. The gasket number I used was here. The gasket I pulled off, it looks like it's a AE 9130 or 8130 maybe. Yeah, I think that's AE 8130. But these other gaskets work. Like I said, you just have to elongate that hole just a little bit and it'll be fine. I put the O-ring on with a little white grease just to help it slide on without cutting it. I debated whether or not a gasket was needed since you have the O-ring to seal. But in looking at the instructions here in the book for installing the tensioner cover, it says to use a new gasket. So I decided apparently a gasket's required. I don't think it'll hurt anything one way or the other. I am going to use a little bit of gasket sealant, just a very, very thin amount on both sides of the gasket, to make 100% sure I don't have any leaks. It's with the O-ring, it's probably not going to leak, but when I install this cover, it's just a flat surface. So it's certainly going to be more important there. Okay, I'm going to take this over and install it. There is a top and a bottom. You'll see the word up there. New bolts came in the kit, and I'm going to put that on the engine. Okay, I've set the torque wrench to 28 foot-pounds, the high end of the range. The sequence is here, top. I've already pre-torqued these, so there and there. And you want to do that to both the belt tensioner and to the oil filler neck. All right, now time for the center system to go on, these pulleys. And we have, that's the plug when I do the alternator vent line. We have 4 bolts left. 1, 2, 3, 4 holes left to go. So we're not going to have any leftover parts, which is good. So I'm going to go put these bolts in, just snug them up, and then I'll find the torque specs. Okay, the project's coming along real well now. Got the center brackets on there with pulleys. So to summarize the torques, let's start with these small bolts. These small bolts here, 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 and around the plate. Around both of these plates, the smaller bolts, are 22 to 28 foot-pounds. The next larger bolt here, here, and here are 43 to 54 foot-pounds. And then the great big bolts here and here are 120 to 140 foot-pounds. I think I went to about 120 on these. They're just holding these pulleys. Okay, so that's the torque specs. Now I need to work on the replacing these bolts on the bracket. I'm still going to look at that a little more. I'm not sure I'm going to do that or take the hose up and around, but I'm going to study on that a few minutes. Then I'm going to put the belt on and make sure the belt works great. I got to figure out a way to lift this up. It's tight. I don't know how I'm going to pull that back to get the belt on there, so I need to study on that as well. But I am pretty pleased with the oil filler here. Long neck. So I think everything is turning out pretty good so far. Well, putting the belt on there was a whole lot easier than I thought. I got my big tire changing breaker bar out. It has a 3/4 inch drive. You just simply insert it. Gotta use my knee here. Insert it into the in there and just turn it, pick it right up. Very, very easy. And I always carry this breaker bar with me, so I have it in case I do need to change a tire and I need some leverage. So there we go, finished. The belt is on. It looks like that is the correct belt as far as I can tell. I don't think a longer belt would be a good idea, so Gil or any of you guys out there, let me know if I got the right belt. It is the shorter belt that came with that 60 kit. Here's the number on the belt. So I'm pretty pleased with this. Looks like that oil filler is going to work out really well. The belt is tight enough that it's certainly not going to flap up there and hit anything. Plenty of clearance. All right. Excellent. Now we need to do the alternator vent line. I'm starting the vent line part of the project, and you can see the reason they're saying you replace the number 4 hose with the number 6 hose, and it provides improved venting and helps eliminate the potential for vent line plugging, which could lead to insufficient cooling of the alternator components and shorten the alternator life. So I'm simply gonna, the current hose comes around and comes in behind this gear case. This is the new hose routing. So I have pulled the old hose off, took the fitting off of the alternator and off of the back side of the gear case. So that's the old hose. And then I've installed the fittings that I showed at the beginning of the video in the alternator and into the back of the gear case. Well, I plugged the back of the gear case and into the front of the auto tensioner. So you can see here's the fitting put into the top of the alternator. And then I had to plug the hole back here. You know, it's very hard to see, but you see the white around the plug. I had to plug that just to close it off. That's where the old hose went. There was a clamp on that bolt that I had to take off. Just loosen the nut and pull the clamp off. And then I took the old line off. Got the fittings put in, and finally I put the fitting here in the face of the tensioner mounting plate. I decided to leave the bolts as they are for this gear stiffener. It seems to just work better with a clamp up there. I did have to twist the clamp a little bit to make it line up with the routing of the hose, and you'll see that here in a moment. So I'm going to install the new hose. I do want to say that when I summarized the torques earlier, I didn't mention this bolt. It's the same size as this one. However, this is only torqued to a value of 22 to 28 foot-pounds, much less than this bolt here. Probably because this pivots, you don't want to squash that down too tight, but I forgot to mention that bolt. Okay, I'm going to install the vent line and show you the finished product. Well, a quick trip down to the Napa Auto Parts store. Had to make up a new hose for me, a 90 on the end that goes into the auto tensioner plate, a straight fitting that goes onto the alternator. Here are the fitting numbers if you want to go to Napa and have one made. And here's the details on the hose. It's a hydraulic hose, very flexible hose. You can see it just bends real easy. Way overkill, I think, for a vent line, but they that number 6 braided hose where I showed you earlier. And that braided hose is an aircraft hose, similar to the one I took out, but this will work just fine for a vent and has the equivalent amount of pressure rating. But for a vent, I think it's way overkill. You could probably get away with a 300-400 pound hose for this application, but nonetheless, just going with what they called for. I'm going to go install this on the bus. Well, the vent line job is complete. You can see the hose has been attached to the fitting on the belt tensioner cover plate. I went ahead and left that. I debated earlier whether to move that bolt with the extended threads to here, but I left it there. It gives good slope for the oil drain, for the vent line to drain any oil out. And then you can see the fitting on the alternator itself. So not a difficult job at all. So let me add up the total cost to do all of these jobs. So the belt tensioner mechanism, I looked last night, and I paid $200 plus shipping. So call it $225. I paid $144 with free shipping, so call that $150. So I have about $400 total in the tensioning and the oil fill replacement. The hose at Napa and the fittings cost another $50 for the hose and the various fittings I needed. So $450, and then I'll probably replace that with a new belt and keep that as a backup. But nonetheless, I am well under $500 for this project, not counting my time and labor. It's a labor of love. So for less than $500 of parts, and that includes a replacement belt, $450 if you just go with what's sitting here. I think it's a good upgrade for the money. I hope this helped somebody, and have fun out there working on the bus.